But I want to switch gears. See what I did there? And talk about something that I saw from our buddy Robert Mays from The Ringer, what he tweeted a couple hours ago. So Jonathan Jones, who has long covered the Carolina Panthers, he writes for CBS now, but he covered the Carolina Panthers. He said that they are looking for this in their new head coach. Offensive-minded, loves analytics, fine with an arranged marriage with a general manager, so not somebody that they had a previous relationship with, and may not necessarily have an answer on the quarterback when he takes the job. That all sounds like Kevin Stefanski, is what Robert Mays said. And I can't help but agree with him that if you're looking for somebody who has been forward-thinking, modern coach and has come out and proven it this year, and proven that he can work with somebody else, the situation with Kubiak, and I know you've talked about what a great guy Gary Kubiak is, but it had the potential to be uncomfortable with you've got an older guy who's proven, who has a Super Bowl and all this stuff, who's over you, but he's not really over you by his job status and all those sorts of things. And yet that relationship has worked out beautifully with the Vikings offense this year.
Well, can I add, by the way, was given coaches and didn't have a chance to select them.
Right. He didn't pick Rick Dennison. Right.
Yeah, here's your O-line coach. Okay, where can I sign?
Right.
And there's a reason Kevin has lasted in this organization, I think, since 2006. When he first showed up as sort of an assistant to the head coach, and was busy doing all sorts of things that weren't really coaching football initially, and then got into being a quality control, which is sort of in college versions, a grad assistant. You're putting playbooks together and doing a lot of film work and a lot of the dirty work, sort of to prepare the head coaches and the coordinators and the assistant coaches and all those types of things. And has worked his way up from position to finally get a position coach. I think it was running backs coach, and somewhere along the line was tight ends coach, and then quarterbacks coach. He always wanted to be a quarterbacks coach. He knew that was how you get to be a head coach, and has now, I think, done a very good job as a coordinator. I consider him a friend, so I'm sort of always been rooting for him. It doesn't always mean they're always going to be successful. I consider Jason Garrett a friend too, and obviously he has done a great job as a head coach, but love the guy. And I do think Kevin Stefanski has done a nice job in his first season with basically whatever players you have, whatever coaches you want to give me, I'll work with them, and we'll try to figure out how to win football games and make this offense be productive. And this Vikings offense has been productive this year. They are much improved over last year. The offensive line has played better. I think Kirk has played better, and they're winning more football games. And so he fits in that mold, is what you said, an offensive minded coach. I imagine Kevin likes analytics. He's just because you're an Ivy League person doesn't mean necessarily mean you're super smart. But I know Kevin's a guy who likes facts and likes some of the numbers that he thinks are important and how you win football games. And he's a smart guy, and I think that he also has good relationships with the quarterbacks, the players. I don't know if I've ever been around a player who really didn't like him, right? So I think that he will get a chance to be a head coach this year. I'm not sure where, but this is definitely one of those teams that's looking for one early, and he does fit a lot of those criteria that you talked about that Jonathan Jones reported on. I think from what I saw, was it Jonathan Jones?
Yeah,
I've seen the tweet here.
Yep.
What I found is interesting was he says, but may not have an answer on his QB when he takes the job.
Yeah.
That's the last one. So that is obviously, of all the things you take from that, other than Kevin Stefanski, that goes into the Cam Newton conversation and the kid Allen, the Kyle Allen that they have there, and what's going to happen going forward. Maybe it's Andy Dalton, maybe who knows what's going to be there. But again, I think Kevin does a good job of, whatever role you put him in. I think he has excelled at that job, whether it was, Childress' assistant or now the offensive coordinator. So I imagine as a head coach, he'd put a good staff together and have a quality ball club.
So that last part of it is the most interesting about not being sure who your quarterback is going to be. Cam Newton is supposed to have surgery, which seems kind of late in the game to have surgery now, and who knows what his status is going to be. He might just be in the Andrew Luck category of being so beat up that he can't have a very long career. But I don't get the sense Sage, that this is going to be the only job that will want, or only team that will want to interview Kevin Stefanski about a head coaching job. If you were Kevin Stefanski, looking at some of the teams that could change coaches, I'm thinking Cleveland goodbye, Freddie, after the
Somebody
whole thing
said Ron Rivera to Cleveland makes a lot of sense. It's like, let's get an adult.
I totally agree with that.
Right. I mean, Ron Rivera is so well respected, and they have been pretty consistent, in that division in his 9 seasons as the Carolina Panthers head coach. And I think that he would, that they definitely need an adult in the room, not someone who wears a t-shirt to talk trash to the other team about a fight. Yeah. That his player was definitely the more wrong than the other player.
Right.
About 90% of the country would agree with that. So, they need an adult. I think Ron Rivera would be a great fit with the Cleveland Browns.
I totally agree, but they were interested in Stefanski last year and almost gave him that job, which maybe they're in the playoffs right now if they do give him that job. So if you
or that might be the best thing that ever happened to Kevin Stefanski. Like, you're walking into, a situation with Baker, OBJ. That team, maybe that wasn't a coach that is not a drill sergeant or whatever. I don't know what that team needs, but it's not what it has currently. And, sometimes you look back and it's like the deals you didn't do are the best deals that you ever did. And maybe, we don't know, but maybe for Kevin, since he didn't get that job, that opens him up to a much better job somewhere else, or just to really prove himself, from whatever he learns this year under Gary Kubiak and Rick Dennison and run this Minnesota Vikings offense.
That's right. He showed that he deserves to get more interviews than just the one that he got last year. So between the teams that are likely going to fire their coaches, I think Doug Marrone is done in Jacksonville. Freddie Kitchens probably done in Cleveland. And if Atlanta doesn't make a change, that would really stun me. They're 3-9 right now.
Dallas is looking that way.
Good chance with Dallas. I'm not sure they would take a shot on somebody who's never been a head coach before.
If they go 8-8, but they win a playoff game, I think Jason keeps his job.
Really?
If they go 8-8 and they lose the first round playoff game, but they win that division,
then
I think or even 9-7, they lose the first round. I think the only thing that can really save Jason Garrett is them getting hot at the end of the season and or win at least one playoff game.
Yeah.
I think even getting in the playoffs in that terrible division of the NFC East, I think he's still fired. So is that 4?
Yeah, we know
we're
that
talking about
Washington is already open and
It's
possibly
always in the mix.
Always.
That's 5.
To me, that's going to be a no from me, dog.
Kevin, don't take that job.
No.
Unless you really need the money.
Right. But the Giants is possible and the Los Angeles Chargers possible. So which one of those teams would you think is the best situation to go?
Well, the Chargers are probably going to be starting over soon with the quarterback situation. Yep. The Vikings have a young guy. I'm sort of curious of how, like, the Maritish, the owners have, the Pat Shurmur, and I have a guy who learned under Pat Shurmur. So, like, they may not want that.
Right.
Since Shurmur hasn't had much success there, sort of guilty by association or something. Jacksonville, I don't know what their quarterback situation is going to be next week, but Foles got a huge deal, and now he's riding the bench for Minshew down there, so that's up in the air. Carolina's up in the air.
It usually goes hand in hand, right? If your quarterback situation is bad, then coaches get fired. That's how it turns
Atlanta might be a nice fit.
Yeah.
I don't know what Matt Ryan has left in the tank and exactly how he's played this year. I don't think his stats are bad. They have great receivers there. So maybe he could put together an offense like the Vikings and then try to hire somebody to improve that defense, which I think is one of their weaknesses this year in Atlanta, which again, that's supposed to be their head coach's specialty, Dan Quinn, and that side of the football is not playing very well. So that could be a spot where Kevin, joined with a coordinator that is basically not even his choosing, but the ownership did that when they hired Dan Quinn. I don't know if you know that, but when they hired Dan Quinn, it was a package deal. Dan, you're going to be the head coach, defensive coordinator. Kyle Shanahan is the offensive coordinator, and you basically have he didn't have a chance to hire his coordinator.
Yeah, well, that worked out really well for him.
Worked out great.
And it
worked out great, right?
So they should have fired Quinn and kept Shanahan, probably. Right?
So maybe that's what happens this time is that they say to Kevin, you're going to be the offensive coordinator, head coach, and we're going to give you a defensive coordinator. You don't have much say in it. And my guess is that Kevin would probably take that deal. But that's the hard part. You hope that they hire a Kyle Shanahan of the defense. That would be really, really nice as an offensive coordinator. So that job does make some sense. This Carolina job could make some sense too. And but right now we got Norv Turner old Norv ran
Yeah.
the show in Carolina.
That's right.
Is he going to be the head coach, or is it going to be Perry Fuel?
It's going to be Perry Fuel.
Perry Fuel. Okay, so it's going to be Perry, who was my defensive coordinator when I was with the New York Giants in that one season in Minnesota. So I love Perry Fuel, and our defense is pretty good. So we'll see how they do the rest of the season down there in Carolina.
Real quick, Perry Fuel, sort of not exactly a story about him, but about how he was an interim coach before. When Dick Duran was the coach of the Bills, they played a game against Tennessee where I think they had some playoff chances still going into a late season type of game. And Dick Duran decided to decline a penalty that allowed Tennessee to kick a field goal to go up by a couple of scores. And then Bud Adams, who was probably in his 90s at that point, there was something else that happened, a kick return for touchdown or pick six or something. And Bud Adams gave the Bills the double bird like on TV. And then
I remember that.
Yes. And then they fired Dick Duran and made Perry Fuel the coach for the last couple of games. And I thought at the time that Fuel actually did a really good job.
I know you were in Buffalo for a while. There's some wild stories over there in Buffalo that we weren't always paying attention to in the Midwest. And so that's always interesting. There's a lot of coaches travel through Buffalo. Everyone probably has a couple of Buffalo stories if you're a longtime NFL